So the point is, if he avoids picks between Allen and Malusi, I'll tell you this right now, and this is an Iowa podcast. I said this after the game. Actually, you know what? I said this. I didn't even say this on the air. I said this to Don during a phone call. I said, you know the one team in this division that can beat Ohio State? It's not Iowa. It's Wisconsin. Because I believe Wisconsin may be the only defense that can contain Ohio State, and Ohio State's defense may not be able to stop the Wisconsin run. So I'm not predicting an upset in the title game, but if Wisconsin ends up winning the division, which I think I'd give them, I honestly, right now, Mark, I'd say they're the favorites. I don't care if Minnesota's ahead in the race. They're the favorites right now, given the schedule, given how they're playing. Tiebreaker, obviously, they've already beaten Purdue and Iowa. I think they would have a shot against Ohio State. Not saying they'd win. They may get blown out if Mertz, self-destructs like he sometimes does. So I got to give Wisconsin a lot of credit. They did what they do. There were a couple publications after the game that quoted some Wisconsin players as saying, we saw Iowa lining up, and basically every time we knew exactly what play they were running. And that is such an indictment on Kirk. And you could say, well, Kirk made it because somebody asked him that today during his media availability. This is what these players said, Kirk. What's your response? And Kirk basically said, well, that's their defense is just really good. I'm sure they knew what almost every team they've played was doing. And that's just a load of bull. That it's just such a lame excuse. I'll give you one example why. And this is really my biggest disappointment coming out of that game on Saturday. Don Patterson, who provides analytics to Kirk, right? That was the one thing he said to Kirk before the game. He said, Kirk, Wisconsin, the one analytic that is 100% in their 7 games up until this point, first quarter scoring. They win the first quarter, they're 4-0. They lose the first quarter, they're 3-0. So or 0-3. You've got to win the first quarter. Now, Don wasn't able to watch the game live. He went back to Western Illinois for Western Illinois State, but he watched it later. So I texted him on Saturday night. I said, have you heard the results of the game? And he said, heard the results, but he said, I got to ask you, did we even try to take a shot? I said, well, if we did, I missed it. And, he said, well, this win was predicated on Iowa getting off to a quick start. Well, I said, does this quantify as a quick start? 0 first downs in the first quarter, 1 first down in the first half, 20-0 at halftime. Is that a quick start, Mark? I mean, and let's be honest, if Iowa was taking shots and Wisconsin was just getting to the quarterback and, picking off Petras, that'd be one thing. We weren't looking downfield, Mark. There were no shots downfield. There were no looks. I've heard people this week say, well, I think we were trying to take shots, but they just weren't there because Wisconsin was getting back. Now, you watch the game back. I'll give you a perfect example. This was third quarter, I believe. Don and I had this conversation as well. 2nd and 1. Keep in mind, Iowa had 1 first down in the entire first half. So I can, 2nd and 1 is nothing to an average team, but 2nd and 1 for an Iowa fan, that's like, I don't even know how to describe the jubilation when you see 2nd and 1 on the screen. But you've got 2nd and 1, and Don's a former OC, and I asked him, I said, is 2nd and 1 almost better? It's better than first down, right? And he said, absolutely. Absolutely. And he described how some teams are known for taking advantage of waste downs and some are not. And of course, you don't want to take advantage of a waste down against Miami, Ohio, because you want to be able to throw that into, you don't want to have that on tape for Wisconsin to look at. But Iowa gets up there. It's their first waste down of the game, and they run the football for like 2 yards for first down. And to me, that was just the epitome of no confidence at all, no willingness to break tendencies. And that was my big key going in. And certainly I stole a little bit of that from Don Patterson himself. Iowa they're not going to come up and beat Wisconsin at their own game. They had to break tendencies. And once again, Kirk and Brian, whoever you want to blame, they were not willing to do that. They were not willing to try. And for that, this loss is on the coaches. It's not on Petras. It's not on the O-line. This loss is on the coaches.
No confidence in 2 directions. No confidence to be able to take the shot and have a reasonable expectation of connecting. And we know that when you take a shot and are looking, let's say, past 25 yards, that you are playing in a sense the percentages overall, but not the percentages for that particular play, because the percentages of success are 30% or something like that. But you are You are sending a message to the defense. You are setting up for later in the game. You are obviously the gain, the reward is high on the risk, whether that's a pass completion or interference. But common sense and the analytics will tell you that you cannot win against a Wisconsin at 3 to 5 yards a clip for 75 yards. It's just not going to happen. So it's the lack of confidence that they can make the shot work, and then it's the lack of confidence that if they miss on the shot, that on 3rd and 1 they can pick up the first down.
Yeah.
And even get the yard that they need against a Wisconsin defense that's just, I think the stats were 0.8 yards per rush. And of course that includes sacks. So it's
Sure.
a skewed statistic in college football. Unfortunately, I don't like it, but certainly gives great indication.
And Mark, we know I can sit here and you can sit here and we can say that's a sign of lack of confidence in the offense. It also might just be a sign of lack of competency in play calling. I mean, total lack of competency, because this isn't the only situation. It's not just, Iowa doesn't take advantage of waste downs. That's our complaint. I mean, they came out of the game, first play from scrimmage, Charlie Jones run back. Charlie Jones and Torrey Taylor, those guys deserve to be on a good offense because, man, they put Iowa in tremendous position, as does the defense. But Iowa has one of the best special teams units in the country, one of the best defensive units in the country. It's being wasted. But anyways, so Charlie Jones returns it to near midfield, right? First play of the game. Iowa comes out on 1st and 10 in empty. No backs in the backfield. Petrus back there with nobody back there on 1st and 10. Might have been the dumbest call I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, what is the reasoning to come back there and empty? And Don and I talked about it on our show. It just makes absolutely zero sense. It's frustrating because it's almost like Brian's got a bag of possible options and he's just drawing, and he just happens to be a guy without very good odds at drawing something good, because, man, you almost feel like you or I could make better decisions in a situation like that. Iowa shouldn't ever be an empty, by the way, Mark, unless it's 3rd and long, ever. I don't care if it's against anybody, but let alone Wisconsin.
And coming out in empty is even amplified even more because of your lack of mobility at quarterback.
Right, yeah. If you can come out as empty if you're Penn State, because Clifford's a threat to run. The one team, I mean, there's so many that's what's frustrating about it, Mark. There are so many reasons not to do what Brian does, and yet he still does it. There are so many reasons not to run the fullback twice on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 1. I mean, first of all, you didn't get Wisconsin's front. I mean, it was a 9-man front, first of all. We're swinging to a different play. I know I'm jumping all over the place. But 3rd down is a huge possession because Iowa had cut the lead to 20-7, as you know, Mark. It was 3rd and 2 in Wisconsin territory. Another time, and Don is actually one that brought this up initially, take a shot on 3rd and 2. You need points here, and you're struggling to get a yard or two on the ground game anywhere, and now you're going up against a 9-man front, and you run the fullback on 3rd and 2, and you would think that Iowa would have learned from the Purdue game that you don't run the same short yardage play twice in a row where you're reliant on an official giving you a spot to advance the chains. And even then, if you advance the chains, like Don said, you're having problems getting first downs anyway. So whoop-de-doo, you got another first down. Now you got to go 10 more yards to get to the third. I mean, the way Iowa's playing football right now is not winning football. We've been saying it for years that Iowa plays not to lose. But right now, they're really playing not to lose, and they're losing doing it. But 3rd and 2, you take a shot. They don't. They run the fullback for a yard. They go into a timeout, and they come out, and they run the fullback again. And I admitted during I said, I don't know what to call here. I wouldn't know what to call in 4th and 1 because I didn't have faith in. Typically, I have faith in the quarterback sneak and fullback dive at Iowa. It's actually been two of the higher percentage run plays in Iowa's playbook. But in that situation, I don't know. But see, I don't get paid $700-some thousand like Brian Ferentz does a year to make those calls. And I know there's some coach speak. I brought up what Kirk said earlier today Another comment, I want to address this comment on the screen here, Mark, about our chances of seeing Padilla. Kirk was asked after the game on Saturday, was Padilla coming in there late? Was that something that you saw because you wanted to see what he could do, or was it just to protect Petrus? And he right away downplayed the idea that there's any quarterback controversy. No, we just wanted to protect Spencer's health. First thought there is, well, that's got to make Alex Padilla feel really good. I mean, the last play that Spencer was in there, I don't know if you saw this, Mark, but that might have been the most of all the maddening plays and calls in that game on Saturday. That might have been the one where I almost felt like turning the television off, because it's like it's fourth and I think it was like 4th and 11 or 4th and 12. And Petrus, he had, of course, there was pressure all game, but it wasn't like he was going to get decked. He throws the ball 20 feet out of bounds on 4th and 11. I mean, on what planet does that make sense? On what planet? I mean, I'd rather throw it. We had a listener brought this up. You'd rather throw the ball downfield and get a pick. You'd actually be the equivalent of a punt. Throw the ball down the field. Don't throw it out of bounds. But and I'm not here to rip Spencer, because I think I'm a firm believer, especially at Iowa, your quarterback is a product of your coach. Very much so. He's a product of your coach. And so, in answer to this question from Springtime 0502, I do want to see Padilla. I don't want to see Spencer yanked. I want to see Padilla for at least a series or a drive. Okay, for a couple of reasons. A, he's mobile, and I know people have brought that up in the past, and I've downplayed it. But the reason I'm more interested in that conversation now is because these offensive line problems are not going away. They are not going away this season. So you've got to figure out a B or a C plan, and maybe that's mix in Padilla, the threat of somebody who can escape. We saw him come in late, and I know maybe some of Wisconsin's backups were in the game at this point, but he made a nice play. The pocket broke down. He flushed left and made a nice throw across his body down the field to Sam Laporta. That was a good throw. Now, it was just one play. And if here's the one problem with yanking Spencer is it damages a quarterback psyche. So I would have a conversation. If I was the OC, I'd have a conversation with Spencer. I'd say, look, Spencer, this ain't your fault. We have a very subpar offensive line. Our guys you can make all the excuses for the line to Spencer that you need to make, even though I don't believe those excuses are totally valid, but you can make those to Spencer. We need a guy who's mobile. You're not getting yanked, but we're going to see what Alex can do here and there. This is the North. I mean, if you lose on the road to Northwestern, who cares anyway? I mean, at this point, does it really matter? If you're struggling to beat Northwestern with Spencer, does it really matter if you squeak by 20-17? Give Alex Padilla a shot. I'm all for that right now. I'm not all for Deuce Hogan because the guy's the third quarterback on the depth chart, but I'm all for that right now. So, I can see where fans are coming from wanting to see Padilla this week. Unless something crazy were to happen, Alex Padilla is the only guy that's going to see the field in addition to Spencer. I told Don, I have no reason to think Kirk's going to play him, and Kirk said that today. He said, I believe he said, now I don't want to misquote Kirk, but I believe Kirk said, we haven't even thought about it. We haven't even thought about it. I mean, dear God, if you want to lose a fan base.
Okay, so when Kirk makes a statement like that, and I'm going to also address a statement that you made of his earlier, I'm going to interpret it one of two ways. So when he makes a statement that they haven't even thought about using the backup quarterback, yes, like you, I think it's ridiculous if that's reality. If it's just not even on their radar to even consider it. Now, if he is trying to, in a subtle way, give a vote of confidence to Spencer Petrus, I can understand that.
Right.
Just like when he makes the comment, hey, in response to the question, have you looked at the offensive line? Have you given them more attention? Because that's your area of expertise and there's an obvious need there. And he says no. So again, I think that's ridiculous, because if you are, let's say, it doesn't even matter the industry, if you are a division manager of 5 departments and 4 of them are humming along and are running like clockwork, and one is struggling mightily, and especially if that's your baby, if that's your area of expertise in which you were coming up through the ranks, well, obviously you look into that situation and see
Right.
if you can offer advice and oversight and figure out and help the person in charge with what's going on. Of course you do that. So I wonder if he's also stating, in a sense, that I don't want to make this area look bad, don't want the offensive line coach to look bad. I'm just basically giving a vote of confidence or stating to everyone, he knows what he's doing. He's doing a good job. I trust him.
Yeah, and I understand that. There is such a thing as coach speak, and like you said, the comment about Padilla could very well be a vote of confidence for Spencer, and certainly the comment about working with the offensive line could be trying to give a vote of confidence to George Barnett. I understand that. But again, you're also talking about, I'm not saying he should care, but he should. I mean, he should care what the fan base is saying to a degree, because there's always going to be the fans that are wishy-washy and fair weather fans, but that those are not things necessarily you want to hear. And I don't think, I've always heard, often head coaches aren't there to micromanage position coaches, and I understand that. But I think there is a way to, even if he were to have said that publicly, not that he has to, I would have liked to have heard him say it publicly, but if he were to answer that question and say, I'm helping out George as much as I can, he's got his hands full. There's a way to couch that to where you're not trying to undermine what he's doing or show a lack of confidence in what he's doing, because if that's the one position group that is qualified, Kirk is qualified to come in and help, not to micromanage, but to help, it's the offensive line. He's an offensive line coach. So, and maybe that's happening, but like you said, Mark, if there's something struggling and your head coach happens to be an expert in that field, I would think George Barnett would be asking for that help. It's his first year on the job, and it's the sore spot of this team.